Now, to create an inheritance hierarchy, what we're going to do is we are going to retire our microphone class here, okay? So what I'm going to do is create another class inside of our package here. So new, a Java class, of course. I'm going to call this person, okay? Because this is going to help us create this inheritance that we're trying to do here. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say private. It's going to have a string name, private string, say first name, like that, and this is going to be last name, private int age, as such. Okay, we're going to go ahead and create, say, command n, create a constructor. I'm going to add all of those, but because we also know of other ways in which we can overload our constructor, I'm going to make sure that we have a public person constructor that is indeed empty, so that we don't run into issues when we want to create an empty constructor or instantiate a person object with an empty constructor. Okay, and let's create getters and setters here. So command n, again, let's go down here, getters and setters, enter. I'm going to add all of those, click, and voila, there we go, we have getters and setters. You can see quickly we were able to put together a person class that has all of the properties. Make sure the properties are all private, right? And we have two constructors here, so we're overloading constructor. Of course, if you want, we can create another constructor where we have to differentiate this next constructor here by the number of parameters that we're passing. So you should know about this from previous videos. And of course, we have getters and setters and all that stuff. So nothing new here. With the help of our code editor here, we're able to put that together real quick. Right, very good. So let's close this down so we have more space. So now we have this hierarchy of person here. So what are we going to do? Go back to main here. I'm going to make sure that all of this is commented out, and I'm going to remove it and put somewhere below down here. Okay, like that. So that way we don't have all of that stuff here. So I'm putting all here so that you have access to it if need be. All right, so let's start from scratch here. Very good. So you know now how to instantiate our object. Let's say I'm going to say person, say James is equal to new person as such. Now this doesn't give us any problems because you guessed it, we are now using this empty default that we created constructor here. Okay, that's the beauty of overloading constructors. Very good. So also I can come down here. Let's get rid of this. And instead of that, I can also use another constructor, say person, James is equal to new person. In this case, I'm going to pass the name. So it's going to be James. And then I'm going to pass, let's see, what was it? First name and last name and age. Bond. And age is going to be an int of, I'm going to say 47. Very good. So I can come down here and say out, system out, and pass in James dot get age. Save this, control run. If all goes well, we should see 47. So nothing new as of now. Very good. So you should be able to do this without a lot of assistance. Very good. So the idea here is that we've created our person, right? Class. We have our person class that we created here. We added everything we needed to add to it to make it a good blueprint so that we can instantiate our objects. But now we are talking about inheritance. Now, if we look at person as the top tier or the top super class in this case here, right? The parent class, you notice that we can then create other classes out of person, right? So in this case here, if we use person as the top class, the parent class, we can create other classes that inherit from person, right? So any other class that would have the same characteristics that can borrow or inherit from person, we can create those. To do that, very simply, we'll have to create a different class here. In this case here, I know that a manager or an employee would be a person class, right? Because any employee or a manager of any business, it is, after all, a person. So we can create that hierarchy there. So I can say, for instance, employee, like that, say, okay, this class here is a total different class where we can add the same items or the same fields as this, because employee will have first name, last name, age, and even other things that a single person doesn't have, right? Very good. In this case here, we need to relate these two classes here through inheritance. How do we do that in code? Well, to do that, we use the keyword extends. Extends is same thing as inherit. I don't know why they didn't use the inherit keyword, but we're stuck with what we're stuck with. Okay, so extends means inherits from what? Well, employee will inherit from person class. The moment we do that, I will leave this class as it is. You will notice something very interesting because we're saying that employee inherits from person through the extends keyword. I can come to my class now. This is where we're creating all of this, right? I can come down here. I'm going to get rid of all this, for instance. I can create another employee class. I can say employee, or object, I should say. Let's say employee, like this, is equal to new employee as such. Notice something very interesting. If I say employee dot, look at that. You'll notice that I have access to all of the getters and setters. That is very amazing, considering that in our employee class, all I had to do was say employee extends person. And as you can see, there's nothing in here. Nothing. That is the power of inheritance, because now employee extends person, which means inherits everything from person. Hence, I can prove to you that we're able to say something like this: employee dot set first name James. I can come down here and say employee again dot set last name Bond. I can keep going. Employee dot set age 47. It's getting younger and younger. And I can say s out. And let's say I want to say employee dot get first name. Oops. First name as such. Save and run. Guess what? We see James at the bottom there. Very interesting, right? So there we go. So we can now create all sort of hierarchies because we know that as long as the parent here is well done, it has everything that we want it to have, everything that will extend, inherit from that person, I should say, what's going to happen is that it will get all of those characteristics, if you will. But the beauty here is that, yes, we have implemented the extension or the inheritance from our employee to our person, right? So our employee now is of type person, meaning it gets everything from a person. But it won't stop us from adding a customization to our employee. We could say here, for instance, I want a private int ID, right? I could add extra properties to our employee. In conjunction with that, it will also have everything that person has. Check this out. Now, I won't be able to see this because it's private, obvious reasons. But if I create a getter and setter, as we did before, like this, notice what's going to happen. Let me save this and I go to our my class again. I can come here and say, for instance, employee dot, look at that. I can get ID and set ID. And you can see, again, another awesome thing about having a good IDE. It highlights them because now it's saying set first name, last name. That is all from the parent class. However, the get, it comes from employee. In fact, you can see here to the right, right? So as you hover over, you go over here, you see the employee says dot employee. So this is the path to where our class is the package name and employee is the class. That's how we know these two are from the employee class that we are getting it from. The rest, go to this next one, you see it comes from person, even though I am inside of employee object here. Okay, so let's set ID. I can say ID is something like that. And I can come down here and say get ID, right? Save, run. You're going to see that ID that we set it to be. All right, so now we are customizing everything. Notice the person doesn't have ID here. However, employee does because we added it ourselves. All right, so I can even say here, private annual salary. Okay, well, it has to be what? An integer. Actually, it can be a double because a salary could have decimal numbers there. In this case here, I can come down here and create another getter and setter for just that annual salary. And voila. So now I can come down here again, because I have that object, and say employee dot set annual salary. It's expecting what? A double. Let's say it's $100,000 annually. Is that correct? 100,000. There we go. Now I can say get salary, annual salary, save that, and you should see $100,000. It is double because that's why you have the dot zero there. So all of that was possible from one concept only, which means we could create another class instead of employee. Let's say we want to create another class that will, of course, inherit from our person main class. I can say here, I want manager. Okay, manager is going to be a person. That means we are going to say extends person like that. And we're going to make this manager a little bit more different, right? It will have everything about the person that we want, but at the same time, we can add some other things too. But notice also the other thing. We know that the manager is a person, but also a manager in the grand scheme of things can be considered as an employee, right? We don't have to go to that extent, but it is a manager of Walmart. He or she still is an employee of Walmart. So we could say here, extends employee. That would work as well, because now manager will have the things about employee. But check this out. If I come down here, remember, for our manager here, we are saying it extends employee, not the person. Check this out. What's going to happen? So if I come down here and I create a new, here, I'm going to say manager. Okay. Manager is equal to new manager. What's going to happen? Let's say manager dot. Look at that. The moment I say dot, it says get age, get annual salary, get first. So it goes ahead and gets everything from the person, even though it's not extending the person. But because it's extending what? It's extending the employee. Employee extends what? Person. It also gets all of those. And you can see here, because you can see get age, get annual salary, get first name, get ID, get all of sort of things that we actually did not add inside of our manager here. There we go. So now that saves us a lot of time, and we can of course add more properties that are just for the manager if we wish to do so. Okay, so at this point here, I can say, for instance, dot set first name manager George. Okay, you can say manager dot set last name and say kilos. You can construct everything that, let's say, set age, let's say is 35. Manager dot set ID, let's say 456, right? We can do all sort of things. Let's say what else? That's set annual salary of $45,000. There we go. And I can say S out manager dot get annual salary. Oh, made a mistake there. Get annual salary as such. I can even append other things like manager again, get first name. Okay, I can add whatever I want. Run this, we should see all of this information. $100,000, that's from the first one. Okay, let's see, because we're still running all this other stuff there. So we have $45,000, manager George. Okay, this is what we asked to be print out. There we go. So you can see the hierarchy there that we have created. And again, manager has nothing inside here. We haven't even added anything, but because it extends employee, which also extends person, then we get everything from top down, from person and as well as employee. So you can see there's this hierarchy that we have created just through inheritance. Again, this concept here is another pillar of object-oriented programming. The idea that we can create entities, in this case classes, that can feed off each other, that can inherit from each other to create a system that is logical, a system that is integral, a system that actually works together, and minimizing the code creation here, right? And of course, it allows us for a lot of extensibility. So now we are able to create very complex classes that don't repeat code. That's very important, because we're not repeating any code here. We could have said public class manager and add all of these properties and then go to employee, add all these properties and all of that. That's very possible. That's no problem. However, that is not very extensible, right? Because we're repeating the code. Using inheritance, now we don't repeat the code. We have a very symbiotic relationship within classes, and we have good coding practices. So this is another pillar of object-oriented programming, and I hope you are enjoying this class. Okay, so if you have any questions, you know what to do. Practice this concept, folks, and I'll see you in the next video.